Thanks to everybody to put this all.
Good morning. How's everybody doing this morning? I'll take that as a resounding endorsement. All right. So we've talked about how to paraphrase, quote, and summarize to get sources in your paper, right? And then how to cite them in your text with using the MLA format. And we'll review that a little bit more here at the end. I want to talk about another aspect of academic writing, and that is shifting from informal conversational style, which we used with your basically your autobiographical piece, your literary autobiography, where you talked about how language or reading or writing had an effect on you. That was an informal conversational tone and style, right? So now we're moving into research writing, and now we have to formalize the language. So there are some rules to follow, and we're going to talk about those. So it's more formal, it upgrades the language choice. It avoids things like slang, colloquialisms. So this is where you guys can help me out. I like to stay updated on my English, and any language that you speak, a living language, right? We change it, we speak it, we take a rule that was wrong, and if we do it that way enough, it becomes right. We create the language as we speak it, which is one of the cool things I think about language. So we add words and phrases to it all the time. In fact, I just used one last night. I didn't realize that, I don't know if anybody else is using it this way. Probably they are. Is anybody on Twitter? You'll see some people say, "Don't at me." Anybody know what that means? They'll make a statement and they'll say, "Don't at me." Anybody seen this? I used it. Yeah, don't call me out on it. You know, I've made a statement and I don't wish to hear your opinion on it. That's my opinion. You're not going to change it. Yeah, don't talk to me about it. Right? So I was texting with my daughter and I was like, yeah, I said something and I'm like, don't at me. Like, don't challenge me about what I just said. And I'm like, oh, that's something new that probably people are using, right? So you guys help me out. What are some new slang or phrases that you might use lately? Everybody think of a slang or informal phrase. Like my daughter had to explain what spilling tea was. Somebody on Twitter was like, I'm gonna spill some tea. Or what are some of the language that you use while texting that you wouldn't necessarily use when you're writing formally? Give me an example, everyone. Give me one example of slang or texting language. See if I know them all. If I can collect more, I am a word collector, a phrase collector. Trying to think of what else I've heard. Oh yeah, there's, I don't know, is this one out of style, on fleek? Might have been a few years ago. Do they still use on fleek? Am I behind the times? No one's going to tell me? Not really anymore? Okay. Thank you, Alexa. Now I know I can take it out. Like, it's the same thing. We add new words and phrases and then we dump them out. How about this one? This was an old one. You guys heard this one? Show me the money. Is that still around? That's pretty old. That's from a movie in the 90s. It's like, prove it. I could do tomorrow? What does that mean?
I'm not very sure, but it's like when someone asks you, "Are you free tomorrow?" or like, "Are you available tomorrow?" Instead of saying, "Yes, I would be available tomorrow," you just say, "Yeah, I could do tomorrow."
Oh, okay. All
Yeah,
right.
I think that's a bit informal, not very sure, but sounds
Yeah, we're
informal.
talking any kind of this. I'm asking for the informal versions just so we can kind of
Sure.
compare. Snatched. Alexa, what is snatched? Use it in like a context for me so I can kind of get a feel for it. Huff or cap? Andre, what does that mean?
Cap. Cap means like you're lying or you're wrong.
Really?
Yeah, like oh, that's cap.
Oh, okay, cool.
You could also say, "I'm a bounce." I think that's very informal when you say that you're gonna leave or like you're something like that. You just say, "I'm
I've
on my
seen
way."
that one. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So that's used like Alexa, that's used like symbolically. I mean, I know what the literal meaning of that is, but so basically the Shakespeare version of that would be hoist on your own petard, or like they got one over on her. Would that be accurate? Alexa, for snatched or read.
The first century was the century AD 1 to AD 100 according to the Julian calendar.
Sorry, I have an Alexa machine in it. All for clout? What does that mean, Lizzie?
Well, clout's actually like a general phrase. What that means is just doing something for attention.
Ah, okay, okay.
Clout itself is like a general phrase. It just blew up recently. It's always existed.
Oh, good. I'm getting some new stuff. All for clout. All right. That makes sense. Clout being like, accolades or, reputation. But what's the origin of CAP? Do you guys know, like, is it an abbreviation of something? You're talking about lying. I'm wondering, I just wonder.
It's just cap. Like it just literally means cap. Like
Oh, so that's CAP?
yeah, like that's cap. Cap.
I'm sorry. I know I probably sound pretty lame when I'm saying
No,
that.
it's cool. It's cool.
Okay, Alexa, yeah. Okay, good. Do you guys ever read the Urban Dictionary?
Of course.
Great, right? They've got today. Oh, they've got, let's see, hold on, let me share my screen with you guys. No cap too? Okay. No lie, like that?
Yeah.
Okay, so word of the day for today is you're fired. They're basing that. So a lot of these things are like based on TV shows or pop culture references, right? This one's referring to Donald Trump's former show, The Apprentice. Or basically, when somebody failed on the show, he'd be like, "You're fired." See, let's see what's trending today. Nuke the fridge. Moment in a film series that is so incredible it lessens the excitement of subsequent scenes that rely on more understated action or suspense. Oh, okay. So like everything after is kind of anticlimactic. What else we got? I'm guessing this is a reference to Kamala Harris. Someone who isn't your mom but treats you kind of like surrogate mom, auntie. Any of you guys want to look at?
I just heard of Gen C yesterday.
Which one?
Gen C.
Gen C? What's that?
C. Yeah, it's literally on the page.
Hold on. Oh, I see it. Duh. The big. So generation born. Oh, okay, that makes sense. After name. Oh, poor generation named after the coronavirus. I thought my generation X was bad. They're like, we don't know what you are, so we're just gonna call you X. It's like, oh well, thanks. So Gen Z is going to be the coronavirus generation. Those Gen Z kids seem awfully weird and quiet. Coronavirus ruined those kids. That seems harsh. Different variations. It's obnoxious. Oh, it's like obnoxious and noxious kind of mashed together. Something really unpleasant. Okay, so these are fun. These are fun to use. They're fun to talk about, right, with friends, but we don't want to use them in research papers and academic writing. Laugh out loud sob. Oh, see, I need to use that. That's an emotion I feel, yes. Something that makes you kind of laugh and then cry at the same time. Ow. Sneaky link. All right, did you guys come up with any others in the chat?
Okay, I have one, but it's kind of older.
That's okay.
So in high school, I had to do this thing, like a paper of like old slang and new slang. So I did the word giggle water. Now, not many people use it now because it's like, but giggle water means like alcohol beverage. Like,
Okay.
I think it's funny because that really is what happens. Like, so.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. It's sort of like you take one concept and you know how we just love to apply it then to everything. Like I was telling her, she wasn't literally going to hashtag me, but I was just like, don't challenge me about it. What, Lizzie, you finna jump? What is that? What does that mean?
So, like, say you're in an altercation with someone else, right?
Yeah.
And I don't ever say, like, swing, swing. But, like, you finna jump means, like, are you gonna hit me? Are you gonna do something about it?
Oh, like bring it on?
Yeah. You
Wow.
finna jump?
Okay. Awesome. I'm hearing some new ones. And so these, some of them may stick around, some of them may go out of style. You know, we speak the language, we change it, we add words, words fade out of our language. Like every year, the dictionary like removes words that they consider to be antiquated and adds a bunch of words that have come into vogue or new. Like internet did not used to be a word. Didn't used to have the internet when I was growing up. Wasn't a thing. There were no network of computers connected all across the world. So a lot of the terminology that belongs to electronic media has come into, like, Google was not a verb. Because like now we're just like, well, Google it, right? We took the name of the company, we made it a verb. So you just need to know that since we're moving on to the academic style writing, you want to avoid sort of the more conversational, less formal styles that we use. Okay. So let's go over a few just general rules. Also, words have connotations, right? Let me show you what I'm talking about here. So a word doesn't just have its literal meaning, okay? But words invoke feelings in us, right? So you know, and they're not necessarily personal individual feelings, but like society attaches sort of a feeling. Go ahead, Jason.
No, I'm agreeing with you. Like, yeah, it's been conditioned and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so if I say mother, that has one set of emotion attached to it, as opposed to if I say mother-in-law or mother-in-laws, they get so maligned. I loved my mother-in-law when I was married. She was great. Wish I could keep her in the divorce. But it's not like you said an individual thing, it's like sort of a societal meaning that attaches to it, the connotation. So you have to be careful, especially when you're writing, because if the connotation of your words is hostile or too strong, then you can alienate your audience, right? So have you ever seen someone like on a TV or a news broadcast or just anywhere arguing for a perspective, and even if you agree with them, they're so annoying you wish you didn't, because you just like their tone is like off-putting and angry, and the language they use is sort of over the top, incendiary. You know, when people start throwing around terms like conservative, liberal, Nazi, I don't know, guys, help me out. When we're labeling people to try to reduce their opinions.
Right wing, left wing.
Yes, exactly. So one of the things you want to be careful about in your papers when you're writing academically, besides using formal language, is don't use language that could be potentially offensive or look like you have a bias. Because you hurt what you call your ethos. There are several ways to appeal to writers when you're communicating and writing, okay? One of them is your tone. So if your tone is reasonable and normal and, logical, we are more likely to trust what you're saying. Go figure, right? As opposed to when you're throwing around those sort of like terms that make people's, backs go up. Then we trust you less. You seem more partisan. You seem more unreasonable, and therefore you hurt our trust in you. And part of the relationship between the author and the writer, or the writer and the audience, is how much we trust you based on how you sound. Do you sound like a lunatic? We probably won't trust what you're saying as much. Do you sound like a reasonable person who acknowledges both sides? Then we're like, oh, okay. They're willing to like acknowledge this point. Sometimes you'll see people arguing and they can't give anything on their side. I don't know, you guys look at Amazon reviews. I'm always suspicious of the products that only have like 5-star reviews,
For sure.
because that means, there's always going to be somebody unhappy with something. And they may have a legit reason, like it got broken when they received it, or you know what I'm saying. But if all the reviews are like, oh, it's just, the best thing ever, then you're like, those don't seem legitimate. I like the reviews were like, I like this, this, and this. This is one drawback to it. Then I'm like, okay, that feels like an authentic. Go ahead.
No, like, what's the reason for all like 5-star reviews? Like, wouldn't someone have to pay for all those bots or something? I don't know.
Some people
Plus,
do.
a lot of them are individualized too, so I don't know.
Yeah, some of them sort of have like, okay, like I do a lot of freelance writing, and I have been asked to do like write reviews for products. That, yeah, and I'm just like, no, that's against my ethical code. So sometimes people do pay for reviews. Now they've gotten better at sort of weeding those out and looking and making sure that, because those are not supposed to be allowed. But a lot of people just seem to think that any negative criticism of something is to their disadvantage. So they like weed it out, or they'll challenge bad reviews. And they don't sort of get the idea that with your ethos, it's just a normal part of human nature that somebody's not going to like something, right? Or have a problem with it. And if you look too good, then it's not authentic. And we can tell that you're sort of skewing it. So I just think they don't understand the concept of, looking at both sides of it. They feel like anything that hurts them is bad. And not being able to take criticism it hurts your ethos. Does that make sense? So whereas you may use more colloquial or slang language in informal essays, like if they ask for an essay where you're writing something about your experience, like I did for the first paper, this time you're writing more objectively. So there are some rules to follow. Let's look at some of them.
Ma'am, I had a question.
Sure.
So let's say it's a writing piece, but it's narrative. So it's narrating like an event or like a story. And you could use slang language to cite what characters say, right?
You're using slang language to do what? Say that last part again.
Yeah, to cite what a character just said or a person just said.
Oh, yeah.
It's a formal piece. Yeah.
Yeah, all of these rules apply. Like if you're quoting something and someone's using this language, that's perfectly legitimate.
Got it.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about that. You only have to worry about your own tone and language.
Yeah, got it. Yeah.
So one of the rules that you want to follow for academic writing is no personal pronouns.
Mhm.
What Personal pronouns, I, you, we.
Me.
I'm doing this, you're doing that. It's too informal. Okay. And so I might say school dress codes are biased against girls. Or I might say, I think school dress codes are biased against girls. Which one sounds stronger?
The more objective one.
Yeah. So I don't hang me out there in front. Now, it's a good way to draft because you can get really strong statements by just putting I think or I believe in front of it. Okay. But then when you go through, like you guys are doing and revising and editing for the final draft, all you have to do then is cross out that part and you've made yourself a nice, strong claim. Okay. So take out all of the I's and use, we is just plural I. Okay. And stick with third person. So the reporter, researcher, you know, whatever the qualifications are, doctor, lawyer, they, okay, people, society, proponents we talked about, like using the language of argument, opponents. So you use those sorts of constructions instead of saying I think or I believe. If your name is on the paper and you didn't cite it as coming from somewhere else, I'm going to assume it's what you believe without you saying I think. If you say school dress codes are biased, I'm going to assume that's what you think unless you're citing someone else who said it. Okay, so you don't need the I think or I believe, but sometimes it can slow down your drafting if you don't use it. So, you know, in the shitty first draft, go ahead. But when you get to that stage that we're at right now, when you're revising, you want to do that, take out all of the personal pronouns. The other thing you want to avoid is contractions. Okay, so contractions are when we take those two words and mash them together. So cannot becomes what? If we're going to make a contraction out of it. Can't, right?
I know some teachers take off points for contractions and stuff.
If it's formal writing, which is why we're talking about this. So yes, I will take off points if your writing sounds too informal. Okay, if it has personal pronouns, if it has contractions. And one nice quick way to like again in your shitty first draft, because we write with contractions, we're comfortable with them for informal language. So just before you turn in your paper, hit Control F and search for all the apostrophes. Okay, and that should highlight. Now sometimes we need apostrophes, excuse me, to show possession, right? The man's hat, that's a different use of the apostrophe to show that the hat belongs to the man. But for contractions, they're used to show omitted letters. So don't is a contraction of do not, right? Won't a contraction of will not. Okay, so just Control F, look for all the apostrophes and see if they turn up any contractions and make them into the words that they're contracting. Okay. So those are two of the big rules. No contractions, no personal pronouns. Okay, so let's talk about word choice. You always want to use the best words anyway, and we've talked about that. But sometimes they can be less formal words, like we were discussing with the slang. But also, like, you know, so we say something like the kids. How would we formalize kids? What would be a more formal version of kids?
Children.
Exactly, right? So for your word choice, when you're going through and you're editing, you know, take a look at your words and ask, can I upgrade this basically to a more formal sounding word? Okay. Let's see. So those are the basic three basic roles. Let's talk about another one. Oh yeah. Verbs that have multiple words involved. Let me share my screen here. So the informal version of this is the balloon was blown up. So there's like three words that are part of that verb, right? That's what they mean by, it's more like a phrase than a verb. So you want to, and we talked about this for editing anyway, it's generally a good idea. So the formal version of that, the balloon was inflated. So inflated can replace blown up, right? Okay. The patient got over his illness. The patient recovered from his illness. Okay. The results of the study were mixed up. The results of the study were confused. So you can see the difference sort of in the level of formality between these, focusing on the verb use. So you want to use strong verbs that are more formal. Okay. You're going to avoid slang. So say the mob was rowdy during the protest. The crowd was very rowdy during the protest. Okay. Lecturers still count on students to use correct grammar, punctuation, and essays. Instead of count on, lecturers expect students to use it. Okay. It was raining cats and dogs. No, it was raining very heavily. Okay, so less figurative language, unless like you pointed out, you're quoting someone who's already using it. Okay. Again, first person pronouns are considered informal. I consider various research methods for the study. Various research methods were considered for the study. So that's one way to revise to take out the personal pronoun. We believe the practice is unsustainable. I would just say the practice is unsustainable, or whoever actually is research. The researchers believe the practice is unsustainable. During the interview, I asked students about their experience. During the interview, students were asked about their experience. Avoid the acronyms, initials, that kind of thing. Now, if you're mentioning an organization that you're going to talk about, the first time you mention them, you want to give what the organization stands for, and then you can generally refer to them by the organization. We already talked about contractions. So these are some basic tenets that you want to pay attention to, because that's one of the things I will be grading this paper for, is that you've shifted from using the informal kind of language to a more formal academic style language. So contractions, phrasal verbs, slang and idioms, personal pronouns, cliches, you don't want to use cliches, vague language, that's another one. So instead of saying things like a lot, a bunch of, what could you replace those words with that would sound more formal? Those are kind of vague and wishy-washy.
Like multiple.
Yes, multiple, many, right? Considerable. Now, I haven't talked about this till now because I didn't want you to worry about it in your drafting, but now since you're revising and editing is the time to worry about it, right? You're turning in the final draft on Monday. Okay. So just review so far before we're about to go on break here in about 4 minutes. No contractions. No slang. No personal pronouns. So, and again, you can do the same thing when you're searching for contractions. You search for apostrophes, just search for I or U to see if you've accidentally used it in there, and then revise to get rid of it. I, U, we. Avoid phrasal verbs in favor of strong verbs. Phrasal verbs are just multi-word verbs. Okay. Questions so far? Let's do one more row before we take it here. Negatives are another one. If you can't avoid negative sort of phrasing. So instead of saying it is not effective, say it's ineffective. Again, it's all about reducing and using better spelled verbs than I have there. Okay. Let's see about, let me find you another example. Oh yeah. So instead of saying it is not positive, what can you say? It is not a positive outcome. Instead, you can say if something's not positive, it's yeah. Yeah, you're going to use complete sentences. So instead of saying, this would just be part of the sentence I'm pulling out. So instead of saying it's not positive, you say it is not a positive result, you say it's a negative result. All right. I'm going to go ahead and end this session here. We'll come back at 8:45 and keep talking about the ways that formal writing is different. So you can upgrade your language and your word choice and your tone for your final draft on Monday. All right. I'll see you back here for the next session at 8:45.